Hello, my friends. Gil from Remax Israel. A lot of agents keep asking me how to deliver a knockout listing presentation. As you know, the market in Europe and in Israel as well is somewhat dominated, or at least substantially controlled by the FISBO, the private seller, who is our main competition when trying to get the listing. And I'm going to show you today 6 steps for the knockout in the presentation. Not all 6 steps may apply in your market, but at least 4 or 5 I'm sure will. And that's the way to really differentiate us from the private seller and basically convince him that working with us is the best solution for him to get top price for his property. Number one is pre-qualifying. We say to the seller in the listing presentation, Mr. Seller, what we do is we pre-qualify our buyers. Our job is not to bring you 100 buyers. You have a life, you have a family, your time is important to you. My job is to bring you 10 buyers, but qualified buyers with the right budget and with the right motivation to purchase your house. So the first thing I do is I sift through all the candidates, so to speak, who want to buy your house, and I make sure that I only bring to you the ones who are relevant for your property. It saves you time, less hassle, and a much more pleasurable process of selling your house. That's one. Number 2, safety. Safety is very important. You know, some of the buyers, I hope it doesn't happen in your countries, but some of the buyers use showing to take a look at the house, check it out a little bit, and find out if they can revisit the house a little bit later for their own purposes, what we call in Israel to have their own open house, if you know what I'm saying. Buyers who come through me have to go through a certain process of giving me their information, their details, sometimes their ID or social security number, and I provide for you a much safer environment, making sure that the buyers that I bring to you are serious buyers. And let me ask you this, Mr. Seller. You want for your house 500,000 euros, which I think is a fair price. Would you like buyers that have a budget of up to 300,000 euros even come here? Of course not. It's wasting your time and it's wasting your effort. This is why I'm here, to pre-qualify and to increase safety. Number 3, what we call the question mark at the door. When you, Mr. Seller, are trying to sell your house individually, each buyer is a question mark standing at the door when they enter your house. You don't know anything about them, which is not good for sales. You don't know what they've seen. You don't know what they've seen and liked, what they've seen and didn't like. You don't know what their real budget is. You don't know what the motivation is. You don't know what turns them on in a house, what turns them off in a house. Basically, you're selling to the unknown. This is a huge difference between me and you. Not because I'm better, not because I'm smarter, just because I'm a third party and I interview and pre-qualify the buyer and I learn everything about their process. So for instance, I know that the buyer that I'm bringing you later today, this guy loves balconies, he loves open views, and he loves to see the horizon, and that's what really turns him on in an apartment. So coincidentally, I scheduled the showing around 6:30, 7 p.m. when the sun is setting out of your beautiful balcony. And when I bring him to your house, I immediately take him to the balcony, he sees the view, and boom, he falls in love with your apartment and he buys it. And suddenly he doesn't notice that there are tiles that need to be replaced in the bathroom. Suddenly he doesn't notice that there's a little bit of remodeling needed in the kitchen. I know how to make them fall in love with your property because I pre-qualify them, I ask them questions, I know what they like and don't like, and I know how to sell your house professionally, get more price offers, and then increase of course, the market price that you will get for your house. Number 4. We call number 4 the seller as the usual suspect. Now, Mr. Seller, you were a buyer before you were a seller, of course, so you know how buyers think. And buyers, when a seller works with them directly, without a third party like a realtor, everything the seller says to them is suspicious. Of course, the seller is going to tell me that the house is amazing, the neighborhood is brilliant. He's leaving, by the way. He's getting away from this house and from this neighborhood, but he's trying to sell it to me. So me as a buyer, I'm very, very suspicious of everything he says to me. It's very difficult to recommend a product or to sell a product that you are going to stop using. And that's basically what it means when you try to sell your own house to a buyer. You're basically trying to sell him a product that you're stopping to use because you're moving. And this is where I come in. I'm a third party. I can give him the whole overview of the house. I can do a much better salesmanship because I'm not suspicious of having a very clear motivation to push this property down his throat. And that gives me an added value as a salesperson in trying to generate his falling in love with your property, giving us the price offer, creating competition, and increasing your market value. Number 5, if this is not enough, number 5 is what we call the one-stop shop. What does it mean, one-stop shop? Mr. Seller, most of the transactions that don't follow through, the ones that fall apart, it happens in the very last stages, I would say, when there's a problem with financing or with legal issues or with registration or things like that. And of course, when it's just you and the buyer, there's no one to help. If the buyer is very self-sufficient and he'll have his own people, maybe he will work it out with you, maybe he won't. The advantage of having me and my office with me, my team, the lawyer I work with, the mortgage banker I work with, the mortgage consultant I work with, is whenever there's a little hiccup in transaction, we know how to solve it. We have the people surrounding us who know how to solve it, and that's why how we increase your closing percentage. And we close more deals because of that. And that also ensures you better market price for your house. So these were 5 out of 6, 5 very strong advantages. Pre-qualifying, safety, the buyer being a question mark at the door, and me being a better salesperson because I know him. Number 4 was the fact that the seller is always suspicious, the usual suspect. Number 5, the one-stop shop. And number 6 is, of course, the killer, but we already delivered a very serious knockout. Number 6 is creating real competition for your property. This is what you need to do with your sellers in the listing presentation. You need to ask them this. You're asking 500,000 euros for your property. Do you think that the first buyer is going to pay you immediately 500,000? Probably not. So you show them the apartment. There's no realtor in the picture. I'm not here. You're working directly with the buyers. You're showing them the property. Okay, you show them around, and at the end of the day, asking, so how much do you want for it? Of course, you tell them 500,000. And they say, no, that's too expensive. I don't think it's for us. What do? Don't be afraid to ask that question directly to your sellers. What do you do then? Of course, you will never say anything that will jeopardize your position. What you're going to say as a seller is you're going to say, well, if you don't want to pay 500,000, that's your problem. Nice meeting you and have a nice day. And then the buyer walks away and another buyer walks away. At the end of the day, we're losing time, we're losing buyers, and we also start to get a little bit pressure, a little bit nervous. Month, 2 months, 3 months go by, and suddenly we find ourselves selling out of pressure, need, and not out of strength. How do we solve that? Well, let's present the difference to our seller. Same situation exactly. The buyer comes in, this time I'm here, and I'm showing him around the property, and at the end of the tour, the buyer says the same thing. Listen guys, 500,000, it's too expensive for this house. But now there's a huge difference. I'm not a magician. I cannot make him pay 500,000 out of nothing, but I say something very different. I say, okay, if you don't like this price, make us an offer. Make us an offer, write it down, and we'll see what we can do with it. And I do it with one buyer, and another buyer, and a third buyer, and suddenly I have a lot of price offers. And these price offers can start competing with each other and getting top market value for your house. And then you ask the seller, look him in the eye and say, can you do that? When a buyer walks with you, there's no realtor in the picture, just you and the buyer, and the buyer says to you at the end of the tour, you're asking for too much. Can you tell this buyer, make a price offer? You know the answer. They can't, because the minute the seller says that, he's losing leverage in a negotiation, because what he's saying, in other words, is I agree with you that the price is too high. That's why a seller would never do that, but a realtor can. That's the advantage of having a third party. I can get you top market price for your house because I can create real competition as a third party in this transaction, get the price up, and give you the best possible deal with as little hassle as possible, no wasted time, great service, great product, and real salesmanship, and earning every euro I get in my commission by giving you an amazing service. There's nothing in these 6 steps that the seller can recreate on his own. He cannot pre-qualify, he cannot guarantee safety or even increase safety. He cannot do real salesmanship with a buyer because he doesn't know him and he doesn't know anything about him. He cannot be seen as an honest seller because he has an agenda, and a very clear agenda. He cannot help the buyer with the lawyers and mortgage bankers and so on because they are the enemies, they're in negotiation. And of course, he cannot create real competition on the property because he's an involved side in the transaction that has to hold the cards close to his chest because they're playing the games of negotiations. These are 6 killer knockout advantages in the listing presentation, and I've found from my experience that handling buyers, that's the real key to a good presentation. Of course, you want to show your marketing. Marketing is always very good, looks good, there's a lot of visual stuff that you show, an international appeal and everything, but what really gets them to sign at the end of the day, your exclusive listing, is the way that you give them best service and best price through your handling of buyers. So watch this video, practice it, do it, and leave your mark.